Brannon House.
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
And how audacious, how crazy of Mary Talley Bowden to try to save a life as a doctor. And they're trying to crucify her with the medical board, the same medical board that had for 12 years, the medical director of the Texas Medical Board was also paid to be supervising as the pathologist, as a medical director of Planned Parenthood, which is taking life, human life. For 12 years during the same time, you have one that saved a life, you have another one that for 12 years was a part of a system that was absolutely involved in taking human lives. Which one is being held accountable? Which one is being crucified?
Absolutely
Mary Talley
right.
Bowden.
Actually, I want a quick pitch for our Texas State Senator Bob Hall in relation to what you're talking about. Texas Senator Bob Hall, who's just a fabulous conservative, has a bill in this legislative cycle that would require the Texas Medical Board to remove records of disciplinary actions against doctors if within the record against the person there's any mention of budesonide, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, or mask. If those words are in the disciplinary action toward this doctor, then the state medical board be forced to drop the disciplinary action. It's a beautiful thing. And honestly, yeah, he's like a hero.
He is a hero.
Yeah.
Senator Bob Hall is a hero.
We have far to go to fix our broken and corrupt health systems. Welcome to Whistleblower Wednesday again on the Rob Maness Show, and we're live on Worldview Tube. Our X Spaces simulcast, Rumble, YouTube, Truth Social Plus, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and Roku. Well, doctors who saved lives are still being punished. You just heard it. As hard as those words are to believe, it is true. Even though we've come very far since the pandemic, corrupt medical providers, medical associations, pharmaceutical groups, and companies and government entities are still attempting to destroy the lives of very courageous medical providers who stood up, spoke the truth when it was not common, and bravely treated patients that saved countless thousands of lives that might otherwise have been lost due to false treatment narratives and misapplied medicines, or worse, banning medications like ivermectin from use, even though it is safer than almost any other medication in recorded history. And banning that medication let people die. The corruption and conflicts of interest that enabled the government and medical communities to trample on our medical freedom and rights is being addressed by new leadership, yes. But we must be careful not to ignore these new actors, because they're coming on the scene to help. They may also possibly be conflicted as well in their interests. The danger is real. We still have little babies' parents being told their newborns need COVID mRNA vaccines as calls for stopping the shots completely are getting louder. Well, my guest today is Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. Dr. Bowden is a fighter for all of us to be able to make our own informed medical decisions and have doctors that can tell the truth, and founded Americans for Health Freedom. She kept over 6,000 COVID-19 patients out of the hospital during the pandemic, and I'm convinced saved their lives, and sued the FDA for spreading misinformation and won. Dr. Bowden, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you. I know your time is very valuable and you're busy. Everybody is trying to interview you. But one of the big questions that I have for you is what led you to establish the Americans for Health Freedom organization?
Yeah, I was never very political prior to the pandemic. I shied away from it. I said, yeah, I barely voted for Trump. I always voted Republican, but just barely. I had a lot of busy life just kept me not really interested. So, unfortunately, with the pandemic, medicine became highly politicized, and I had a interaction with a legislator online on X, Representative Brad Paquette from Michigan, who was injured from the COVID shots. He had myocarditis. He's young. He's in his 30s. And I reached out to him and I said, would you be willing to state that the COVID shot should be pulled off the market? Because no one will say that, right? It's a voodoo topic. And he wholeheartedly responded yes. And so it gave me the courage to ask more elected officials and people running for office if they would simply state that the COVID shot should be pulled off the market. That led to me founding Americans for Health Freedom, where we've just recruited politicians to be brave and state the COVID shot should be pulled off the market.
Well, I, for one, greatly appreciate you doing that, because even though I had the Moderna shot and later even talked my wife, who's a breast cancer survivor, into getting it, I regret that now, knowing what I know now, and we need more people like you to stand up and recruit the powerful and convince them what the truth is. So I really deeply appreciate it, especially at a personal level. So the opening clip, I'm still surprised to see medical boards, associations, hospitals try to crucify people like you for doing what I've always been told what doctors do, which is follow their Hippocratic oath and act in the best interest of their patients 100% of the time, which is what I see in your actions. Why is this still happening? Because this is not, I mean, this is recent, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this started 3.5 years ago. And from the beginning, they've used me to try to set an example, to send a signal to other doctors. This is what you do if you speak out, because I'm just a solo physician. I'm not really a threat to anybody. And I just started speaking. First, I just spoke out about mandates. I didn't say anything bad about the shots. I just said people should have choose, because that's a fundamental human right. And they went after me very publicly, and then they turned me into the medical board. So I've been waiting for a hearing for 3.5 years. And unfortunately, the administrative court just awarded them summary judgment. So next week, I get to hear how guilty I am. They're going to decide my punishment. I have to set aside a week to undergo a hearing where they will consider how much they want to punish me. And then I do plan on appealing. So I don't know how long this will go on.
Can you talk about what they have charged you with that was so bad that they want to punish you?
Yeah, it started off with, I believe, 4 different charges, and it's dwindled down to one. It was basically 2 hospitals turned me in. One was Houston Methodist. So they were the first hospital in the country to mandate the COVID shots. They did it 5 months before Biden. It was April 1st, 2021. And I had privileges there. I was very loosely associated with them. I'd never stepped foot in their hospital. But when I started speaking out about mandates, they said that I was spreading dangerous misinformation. They announced it on Twitter, and then they went to a reporter to tell them I was suspended. And that's how I found out. And so I resigned in response to that. But they turned me in because they said I resigned under investigation. And then the second hospital that turned me in was Texas Hughley Hospital. This was concerning a patient that had been in the hospital for over a month. The hospital had given up. They were talking hospice. The patient's wife was suing the hospital to try to give him the opportunity to try ivermectin because the hospital refused. And so I got involved in that lawsuit as an expert and then as a prescribing doctor. And we initially won the suit. We were given the green light. The lawyers gave me the green light to send a nurse to the hospital to give the medication. But the hospital obtained a stay on the order and ultimately won. And so he was denied ivermectin. And then they turned me into the medical board for unprofessional conduct. They say that, I technically did not have privileges, but we were going off a court order and I was going off the lawyers telling me it was okay to go. But yeah, that was my crime, is sending a nurse to the hospital without having privileges.
Well, I mean, it just blows me away. It also raises the question in my mind. This is still going on, 3 years later, and you're not the only one, I'm sure. In your mind, what's the path to accountability for this whole pandemic? We know the United States government had some involvement in gain of function research through Fauci's organization and everything, but we hear that maybe Andrew Cuomo is going to court now to defend himself because of decisions he made to put people in nursing homes that caused a lot of deaths. Ultimately, I mean, how do we find a path to accountability when powerful organizations are still going after the doctors that were doing the right thing?
It's discouraging, that's for sure. I mean, even under international law, there have been multiple violations, but the problem is all the countries that protect international law are all complicit. So it's very frustrating. I was optimistic with a new administration, but I'm frustrated because they seem to want to just talk about food and ignore the pandemic, I mean, these are really trampled on our rights, our fundamental human rights in so many different ways. And it's just amazing that no one's doing anything about it. But I intend to keep speaking as loud as I can until something happens.
So have you lost confidence in Secretary Kennedy to address that issue at all? I mean, one of the reasons that I voted again for Donald Trump is because he got Kennedy on board because of this issue and I have an autistic son, my youngest son is, and I want to know why he is that way and what's causing that, this big jump in the number. Can we help him get it figured out? Because we can't just talk about food.
Yeah, it was a blow. I mean, I know everybody's celebrating the ban on food dyes, but I really never thought that food dyes would be banned before the mRNA shots. So that is a real blow. But last night on Jesse Watters, he talked about the COVID shots. So that was encouraging. That was the first time I've heard him talk about it since he's been in office. I mean, there may have been other times that I missed, but that gave me a glimmer of hope. But it's just so plainly obvious to me that these shots, first and foremost, should not be given to babies. And the babies were never under any threat to have any kind of serious problems from COVID. And we do not have long-term safety data on these shots. We also have just abundant data showing how harmful they can be. So it's astounding to me that is not the first thing out of his mouth with every interview. But unfortunately, there seem to be larger forces at bay. I mean, I, in my heart, know that he knows that these should be off the market. I just don't understand why it can't be said.
Yeah, I think he knows too. I agree with you on that. And in the next segment, when we open it, it'll be a little video from Peter McCullough about the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. But I want to dedicate some time to multiple vaccines and get your take on some of the things we're hearing about and seeing, because it's really difficult to filter out the narrative, the false stuff. Whether you are somebody that's skeptical about vaccines or whether you're pro-vaccine, there's just so much false information out there and it's about medicine and health, so it scares the heck out of people. So I want to give you a chance to address some of that stuff. But the big thing I want to talk about is this COVID vaccine shot and it on the childhood schedule, the vaccine schedule, because that is troubling that hasn't been immediately removed. I share your concern about that, especially considering that Secretary Kennedy has said, I'm gonna figure out what's causing these autism numbers by the end of September of this year, because as I'm sure you're aware, a lot of us parents are convinced that there may be a there when it comes to the childhood vaccine schedule, because it's so different. Mary, it is so different. I mean, I'll go into it in the next segment. We got to take a commercial break here, but it is just really different, and we need to take a hard look at it. We'll be right back with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden here talking about medical corruption, really.
On the heels of a report by Dora Bawila from New York State. Listen to this. This is in children that were basically encouraged to take the vaccine. The parents took them in ages 5 to 11. 356,502 children took the vaccine. Do you know what the vaccine efficacy was across the weeks of December and January? It was less than 25%.
Wow.
This vaccine was basically like doing nothing. It does nothing for children. And we have really alarming data. And, on my Twitter feed, if you go to it, I just cite the data. Dan Bongino from Fox News had me the other day. He goes, I go to Dr. McCullough's Twitter feed because I just get the studies. Listen to this study. It just came out from Anna Youssef and colleagues. It was published in Lancet Child and Adolescent Health. The title of the report is Reported Cases of Multi-System Inflammatory Syndrome, children aged 12 to 20 in the U.S. who received the COVID-19 vaccine. And here they have cases, 21 people this age group who developed this horrible inflammatory syndrome. 57% had to be admitted to the intensive care unit.
Gosh.
And this is kids who are normal. They should be living their lives and enjoying themselves. And 14% had to be put on the mechanical ventilator. And you know who this is happening to? This is happening to people who, young kids who have already had COVID. So the body's already been loaded with the virus, and now they're being forced to take the vaccine on top. I mean, these are clear signals the vaccine program should be shut down.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about corruption in the medicine and the public health system here in the United States of America. So far in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, but that clip, this is for Secretary Kennedy. Mr. Secretary, that clip's from 2022. We're in 2025 now, sir. It's time to remove these vaccines from our kids' vaccine schedules. And my guest today is Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, who is a founder of Americans for Health Freedom, and has been treating patients, saved over 6,000 patients from going to the hospital in the COVID pandemic. And we're very grateful for you joining us today, Mary. So I wanted to ask you, as a doctor that's now highly experienced in this disease, and has seen a lot of the vaccine adverse reactions and those kind of things, do you have an opinion as to why it's still on the schedule?
Money. I mean, I looked up this morning, actually, how much has Pfizer gained from this? So approximately 9.5 million children have received the latest version of the COVID shot. Believe it or not, it's about 13.1% of all American children. That's $1.4 billion in revenue for these vaccine manufacturers. That is the only explanation at this point. Like Dr. McCullough said, there is just abundant data. I've stopped looking at the studies because it's just, yes, of course, it confirms what we already know. Last I checked, there are over 3,400 peer-reviewed published studies showing the harms of these shots. We've never seen anything like it with any pharmaceutical product on the market. Any other product would have been pulled by now. Typically, after 5 deaths, there's a black box warning. After 50 deaths, the product is pulled. Well, we know we've had 28,000 plus, and that's a gross underestimation of the true number of deaths following these shots. They should have been pulled a long time ago.
Now, is that children and adults, that number that you just put out there?
Yes. No,
Yeah.
that's according to VAERS, but we know even a study from Harvard confirmed that VAERS vastly underestimates the true number. So VAERS, they believe, is just 1% of what's actually happening. And I can attest to that. I mean, the patients that I've seen with injuries, none of them were reported by other doctors. I was the one that had to report them. And I mean, to be honest, I didn't know about VAERS prior to COVID. So it may be that a lot of doctors don't even know. Patients certainly don't know. So I imagine that the numbers we're seeing on VAERS are just a fraction of what's really out there.
Yeah, I didn't know about VAERS either. And I had even in my Air Force career, I had supervised at the executive level 2 different large Air Force clinics that originally started out as hospitals. But I did know about the DMED database that the military whistleblowers like Dr. Teresa Long and Ted Macy, and Mark Bashaw brought attention to, that they went in and fixed, so to speak. The difference between those two is VAERS is a voluntary reporting, self-reporting, and I'm assuming doctors do that too, in addition to patients, right?
Yeah, well, doctors are actually required to submit to VAERS. I don't think they know that, but by law they're required, and they can also get in trouble if they submit a false report. So it's not just as loose as people think. I mean, doctors are obligated, even if you don't know for certain, if you suspect, and we don't have a great test to say, okay, this is a vaccine injury, but you take it, by history, and you eliminate every other cause. So these patients come in and they've had the $1 million workup. Doctors are baffled. They have no idea. And of course they can't connect it with the COVID shot, or they're unwilling to. But you are by law required to report those to VAERS if there's even a shred of connection between this shot and the disease. And these people, it's not like, treating a cold. They are sick and they have very significant problems that are very challenging to treat. The other thing that I'm seeing, which is super alarming, is the spike protein antibody levels. So we don't have a direct test for spike protein, but we can measure antibody levels. And even this morning, I talked to somebody who had a last shot 4 years ago, and her antibody levels were off the charts. They didn't even register. They were above 25,000. That's not normal. I mean, normally antibody levels wane with time, especially now that we're not in the midst of any sort of threat of an infection. You should not be seeing levels that high. But this is a consistent thing I am seeing in these patients that have gotten the shots, is these levels just super high. It's not normal. It's not what you see with other vaccines.
One of the really strange things that I've noticed after that first shot, the first 2 shots I got, that was a series, because I got the Moderna one. I never got another one. And people that I know that consistently got the boosters were getting COVID like every 3 months, something crazy like that. I've never seen that before. Do we have any idea what the cause of that is, or if that's really true? I mean, it's anecdotal.
Yeah, no, there are studies showing that the people that got vaccinated are at increased likelihood of getting COVID, and it's a little bit complicated, but antibody-dependent enhancement, you're basically suppressing the immune response, which allows a slight variation to take over more easily. And we're seeing just immune problems in general with patients, either autoimmune, where the body's attacking itself, or immune deficiency, where they're more prone to infections.
Yeah, my wife and I both noticed for the first year after our shots, we were getting colds a lot. I hadn't had a cold in 10 years, quite honestly, before all that happened. So it's very interesting. Well, we've got a question from our live audience. I'm going to go ahead and take that. Shell is our host over there. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Wib, sir.
Thank you, Shell. Thank you, Colonel. And thank you, Dr. Bowden. Going back to the motivation question, you had said that you believe it's mostly about money. is there any room in there for control as a motivator? And I only ask because we're starting to see similar components in the veterinary world where they're mandating registration and vaccinations where there used to not be such a thing.
Right. Well, this whole thing, yes. I mean, that's part of it too. They start by fear and they use fear to control. And we definitely saw that during COVID. And you look at the Nazis did the same thing with bringing health scares in to control people, to control the population. And so it's a theme that we've seen in history. And unfortunately, it's people are not recognizing it like they should. They're captured, and yeah, control is big. And doctors are easily controlled, and then they also tend to control. So it's a perfect storm.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you because you resigned from hospitals that you were working in, right? You're totally independent now. I spoke to the audience about Obamacare and how bad it was before the show started. And that's one of the things I think that was so bad for Obamacare is that it pushed doctors into working directly for hospitals more than having private practices, didn't it?
Yeah, so only 1% of doctors are truly independent. So a large portion work for hospitals, insurance companies, or the government. And it is more difficult. In some ways, it's harder to be independent because you're running a business at the same time. It's easier in a lot of ways to be an employee. You don't have to deal with any of the financial aspects or managing people or any of that. But at the same time, you're truly independent. So you don't have a third party telling you how to practice medicine, which I really enjoy and which allowed me during the pandemic to treat patients the way I thought they should be treated and not listen to a third party. But yeah, Obamacare adds a lot of red tape, a lot of unnecessary charting, a lot of chasing the money, and makes it more difficult for doctors to be independent.
Yeah, exactly. Since we're talking about vaccines, I wanted to just get your take on Secretary Kennedy's effort to find out what's causing the autism numbers that we're seeing now. And look, I mentioned that I'm a parent of an autistic son, and I have my shot record from the Department of Defense from when I was born because I was an Air Force baby and grew up that way. And I have my sons. And the reason why I'm looking forward to the research into the vaccination schedule is because it is dramatically different. So much so that I was actually surprised. Somebody said, you should go compare those two because we had a spate of baby boys born in my squadron when I was a commander. When my son was born, about six to nine of them were born with some form of autism spectrum disorder. Is there other places that we should look, though, in addition to the vaccines?
Oh, for autism?
Yeah.
I think that's the most logical. And, even prior to COVID, I would advise people, don't give your child, I'm not a pediatrician, but if people would ask, don't give your child a vaccine when they're sick. If you're worried, then maybe don't do it all at one time, just because the simple fact is they challenge your immune system. It's like with any, I give allergy shots at my office for people with allergies. That challenges your immune system. And if you overload the immune system at one time, there are going to be repercussions. It doesn't matter what it is. So it just makes logical sense to start with the vaccines. And yeah, sure, it could be other factors as well, but that's the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it is. Do you think he can get it done in the amount of time that he's laid out there? I hope he can.
Probably already knows the answer. I don't know. I don't know really what's going on. I don't. Maybe they're just compiling all the data they already have. But yeah, I'm not sure what that timing is all about.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the data is already there. It's a matter of actually doing the analysis of it and writing the reports with the facts. We got to take another break. When we come back, I want to get into a discussion about banned medications like ivermectin. There seems to be a new push at the state legislature level in the positive to help Americans be able to get medicines that actually work so they can't be banned. And I'll be right back with my guest today, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. We'll be right back.
But with Brandon, it's always cutting edge stuff happening in the world. And it's not just from the political angle, because you can get that on other platforms, but it's always from the biblical angle. So you're dealing with a guy that loves Jesus, you're dealing with a guy that's very intelligent, you're dealing with a guy that is cutting edge conservatism, and you're dealing with a guy that wants to be biblical all at the same time. And so for that reason alone, I hope many, many people will not just lift up his ministry in prayer, but will also financially get behind it, because from the angle I'm trying to describe, he really is the only game in town. And we desperately need it in these last days. Can I get an amen to that?
Hey guys, it's Chad, and I'm on the road again. I'm somewhere every weekend, and usually in about 30, 35 states a year. And it's amazing to me that after the pandemic, and all of us were villainized for talking about the benefits of ivermectin, that in a lot of those states, ivermectin is still not something that's legal. Me personally, I think it should be sold over the counter. I think that the arm of justice needs to come after Anthony Fauci and Big Pharma and hold them accountable for all the lies and the penalties that they gave us for pushing and promoting the benefits of ivermectin. Now, there are those of you out there who say that ivermectin is some kind of horse paste and it's not good for human consumption. It's literally a miracle drug. And if you're afraid of it, I want you to listen to this right here.
Peter Attia, you know Peter. Peter Attia was on here and he said, do you know what the safety profile of ivermectin is? And I said, no. And he goes, listen to this. He goes, ivermectin's been given out more than 4 billion times. And he goes, there's been less than 30 adverse reactions that have been reported. So
if you want to find out more about the benefits of ivermectin and how you can get it, I want you to visit my friends over at All Family Pharmacy. They will take care of you. You can visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Chad and use promo code CHAD. I spell it Chad. Go over there, allfamilypharmacy.com. Let them take care of you. And don't forget to tune into the Dear America podcast as well as the Chad Prather Show.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about the corruption in public health and medicine and pharmaceuticals with my guest today is Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, and that was Chad Prather, a Texan. I like the clip, and I let it play through his little ad there because, I appreciate the folks putting that stuff out there and being able to use it on the show. So check that out for Chad if you get a chance to hear this again. Dr. Bowden, the challenge with the medical board that you're facing is in large part because of ivermectin, right?
Exactly. They like to say it has nothing to do with ivermectin, but ivermectin is on the complaint. And as you heard at the beginning of the show, Senator Bob Hall has introduced a bill where any complaints submitted with the word ivermectin, budesonide, hydroxychloroquine, or mask, any complaints or any disciplinary action would be nullified and we would get our legal fees back. Unfortunately, it seems to be stuck. The bill has been stuck. I actually reached out to Senator Hall's staffer this morning. She said the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, may have some concerns about the bill, and she's checking to see what is going on.
That's unfortunate. What's the bill number again? You know?
It is SB 2422 in Texas.
SB 2422, folks, especially if you live in Texas. Give Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's office a call. See if we can get that unstuck. because it needs to happen. And we need more legislation like that. And I wanted to ask you, have you been involved in the effort? I think I saw Tennessee was the latest state that I saw that passed a law saying you can buy ivermectin over the counter. Have you been involved in any of that effort? It looks like it might actually be nationwide.
Yeah, so there are 3 states now. Tennessee actually passed it in 2022. They paved the way. And then Arkansas was second more recently, and then Idaho. And then there are actually 14 states with legislation on the table to make it over the counter. Texas is one of them. They had a hearing on Monday. I don't think it's going to pass in Texas, though, because nothing seems to be passing in Texas. But I know North Carolina has a hearing coming up. Surprisingly, Florida is not on that list. Everybody's wondering what's going on with Florida. But yeah, it is important because it is super safe, and it's been demonized. It's been politicized. You don't have doctors willing to prescribe it. Still don't have pharmacists willing to dispense it. Insurance companies won't pay it. People are buying it overseas, or they're buying it from Tractor Supply. And this is America. We should be able to buy human versions of the medication from the pharmacy without issue. And it is definitely safer than Tylenol.
Yeah. Is there a place where advocates that work legislative issues at the state level can go to find a model legislation or anything? Or is it, I'm sure you can go to the state of Tennessee's website and find the bill.
Yeah, and it's a little bit tricky because the FDA is the only one that can make it over the counter where it's sitting next to the bottle of aspirin. So the way this works is the pharmacist still has to dispense it, but they don't need a prescription from the physician. From what I understand in Tennessee, you're still not going to be able to get it from CVS or Walgreens. You have to go to the independent pharmacies. But it does eliminate one step of the red tape. And getting a doctor to prescribe it is usually the biggest hurdle. So that's what it would do for these other states, is just take the doctor out of the problem.
Why are the doctors the problem?
Well, FDA is part of that. They branded ivermectin as a horse medication. That was the lawsuit that I was involved in. And we won the lawsuit. Basically, they went out and said, with a tweet, they said, seriously, y'all, you're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop it. And that tweet went viral, and it made it seem like ivermectin was for horses. And they had to remove the misinformation that they posted on their website and from social media, but it's still branded. And the FDA should come out and make a statement about the safety of ivermectin, about all the benefits, about how it's been used in over 4 billion people around the world, won a Nobel Prize in medicine. We just need to re-educate doctors because it's just been misbranded. And if it were up to me, I would require all doctors to take a CME on ivermectin because there's still so much misconception out there.
Yeah, I'm surprised, and we'll talk about the food dyes and some other, but the conflict of interest that you wrote about in your Substack in the next segment. But it seems like that'd be an easy thing to do for the FDA director to just come out and say it. I wonder what's driving him not to do that, because we are in the era of the Trump administration. And that should give us pause when we don't see rapid action on simple things. And this is a simple thing, right?
It would be a very simple thing just to put out a statement about ivermectin, just like they put out a false statement about ivermectin in the previous administration. They could really correct that, which is a simple message to the public. And it is curious why that has not happened. Maybe if we keep pushing, it will.
Yeah, we will. Some of the other medications I wanted to get your take on. I did a show a few months ago about remdesivir and the risks associated with it. Did you see, in your experience of treating COVID patients, problems with that particular treatment?
Well, I'm outpatient, so my goal was to keep people from getting that medication to begin with. So all the people that I treated early stayed out of the hospital. And so, yeah, but I definitely talked to people where there were significant injuries. There's a great patriot patient, Greta Crawford, started a website called Protocol Kills, because she ended up in the hospital and almost died and was given remdesivir. And so she has collected so many stories from patients who were either killed in the hospital or nearly died in the hospital, complications related to the way they were treated. Protocolkills.com. I encourage everybody to go look at it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had not heard of that one, but I did see the reporting on the military side, and it was titled, what was the title of that? It wasn't Remdesivir Kills, but it was something kills. Speaking of protocols, the whole hospital protocol, I mean, you were so right to keep people out of going into hospitals. Even us non-medical provider folks figured out really quickly that it looked like we were actually killing people with respirators. And this was the part that really bothered me, but telling people not to get treatment in the initial phases of infection. Why was that? Do you have any idea why that protocol was put out there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way we are trained to not treat a virus. Let it run its course. Only treat if there's a secondary bacterial infection. And if that's going to happen, it's usually the second week. Well, that was a total disaster during COVID. And I had to change my mindset because that was the way I thought initially. But I just didn't sit well with me to have people struggling to breathe and not do anything. So initially, I just used common sense. I did breathing treatments. I did steroids. I treated for possible secondary bacterial infection with antibiotics. And I tried hydroxychloroquine early on. And then the Texas State Board of Pharmacy actually prohibited us from prescribing it for COVID, which has never happened before. And so I put that on the back burner, just thought, I don't know what else I can do. And then I started using monoclonal antibodies, and those worked really well. Unfortunately, the government took over distribution and they became harder and harder to get. And that's when I started using ivermectin. But it was a learning process for me. And it just simply grew out of, I got to do something. I got to try something. I'm not going to just do nothing. And I don't understand why other doctors didn't do that. But so many doctors just shut their doors and told their patients, wait till you can't go. I think part of it was fear, and they didn't want to get sick, which is, you don't sign up for that as a doctor. You're ethically obligated to treat sick people and not just, flee from them in fear. It's really bizarre.
Yeah, that's a strange take on that. But that's what was happening. I think that's what was happening. They were in large part afraid. One more question on vaccines, and it's because you're in Texas and this measles thing that popped there. I read an article this morning about the little girl, the 6-year-old that passed away, and it was from a pneumonia, but it was because of like a mistreatment situation. What's really going on with this measles outbreak over there? Do you have any idea? Or but specifically about the little girl, that's really surprised me because they were making it out in the headlines that she died from the measles initially.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the records, but from what I understand is that she was undertreated. So they didn't give her the appropriate antibiotics. And it may have been that same mindset. Well, she's got measles virus. So, what can we do? There's not much we can do because it's a virus. And so they weren't aggressive enough in treating the complications from the virus, like the bacterial pneumonia. That's what I assume happened.
Wow. Unfortunate. Well, they're in our prayers for sure. Well, we got to take our last break, Dr. Bowden. But when we come back, I want to get into your article you wrote about conflicts of interest. And we're going to show a clip from Callie Means about the dyes in the food, which is great stuff. But there's a concern, and a valid concern, that we should be talking about when we have new actors show up on the stage, especially in government. We'll be right back with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden.
You had Secretary Kennedy flanked by the FDA commissioner and the head of the NIH, and they made a very clear statement that the building behind me is going to take common sense action to reverse the harrowing chronic disease crisis where nearly 50% of teens are overweight or obese, 38% of teens have prediabetes. And today they said it's going to happen fast, Laura. These dyes are going to be out. These petroleum-based dyes. And their statement was very simple. Decades we've been talking about the children's chronic disease crisis. Administrations have ignored it. The Biden administration did not have the word chronic disease in their HHS action plan. Today, they said we're going to take the common sense action of removing this literal crude oil from our food supply, which is an action every other developed country in the world has already done.
Now, Callie, my brother asked me this today, and I didn't have a good answer. He said, what took so long? And he said it must be money. You know, the lobbyists are giving money to the various politicians, and Democrats care about health, and they're all granola types, right? But granola has a lot of junk in it, too.
Well, Laura, it was very heavy for me standing in the HHS building today. That's the largest department in the U.S. government. The healthcare budget is the largest and fastest growing part of the U.S. budget, and 90% of that spending is on chronic disease that are preventable. We spend 5 times more per capita than Spain on healthcare, but live 5 years less. The simple fact, Laura, as Bobby Kennedy and President Trump talked about during the campaign, is that there are broken incentives of our healthcare system that profit when a child is sick with chronic disease. Now 35% of our teens are on a chronic disease medication. This is going to be step by step. Nobody's saying the food dyes is everything, but you're going to see a flurry of common sense action from this White House to chip away at these trends. It makes no sense that we've waited this long.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and my guest today is Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. And, Dr. Bowden, I'm thrilled about the food dyes, to be honest with you. As a parent that's been really chasing what has happened to my son, and as a type 2 diabetic myself, I am ecstatic that this stuff is getting removed from our food system and food supply and everything. We have a long way to go. There's a lot more things, in my opinion. I think Mr. Means is a very good spokesman. Although I saw him, I think it was in December of last year, and was surprised to see him as a government employee now. When I saw the hit that I just played just the other day. Or last night. And that really surprised me because I could have sworn he said that he wasn't going to go into the government. He would do everything he could to, advocate for what he was advocating for, food supply safety, a lot of it, from the outside. But something's going on there. You wrote about it. Great article, by the way. I know it's long, but I think it's worth talking about because I started this show talking about, in my monologue, about conflicts of interest. And conflicts of interest, I'm convinced, is why we have such a terrible public health system that has trampled all over Americans' liberties and doctors' liberties and rights and responsibilities, and has probably caused some deaths in that pandemic. So we've got to address it, especially when it's new people on our side of the idea, right?
Exactly. So yeah, Callie has a company called TrueMed, which features products, wellness products that you can purchase using health savings accounts, which is tax-free money, basically. And I'm all for health savings accounts. It gives people more flexibility. They can get outside of the system. My problem with a lot of those products on there are not really proven to really help your health. I mean, they look good and they probably help, but there's not a lot of data. For example, that 8 sleep bed, and I'm a sleep specialist, so that one caught my eye. Insomnia, sleep apnea, those are the sleep issues that need to be addressed in America. They're highly prevalent. And this high-tech bed, which is very expensive, they don't have data showing it addresses insomnia or sleep apnea. And yet, the taxpayers are paying for that for people. So people can use they can get a tax break by buying these fancy beds, which comes out of the rest of our pocket. So I don't agree with that kind of business. And Callie, yeah, like you said, he told me to my face, because I did an interview with him on Danny Jones. He said he had no interest in joining the new administration, and but now he is. He's being paid. And so he's required to remove, and maybe he has, I don't know, but if he's working for the government, he also can't be doing this business that gives him special breaks, where it's very dependent on the government being favorable to his business.
Yeah, I think as a not only as a people, but in government at all levels, we have to figure out how to address that issue. And we do have some mechanisms. When I've run for the U.S. Senate before at the federal level, you have to fill out a financial disclosure form to show where you get your income from, so that everybody that votes for you can go look at that and say, okay, and I'm pretty sure you have to do financial disclosures when you're a political appointee too. But it's got to be, I think we have to figure out a way to fence off those types of activities. I wrote an article not long ago about Elon Musk because he's a national security defense contractor, but he also has vast assets and interest in China, the China that's run by the Communist Party, China, which is very interested in our national security. So we have to have policies and procedures that will fence that off. Any recommendations on how to do that?
Yeah, it's kind of beyond what as a doctor, what I know, but transparency is step one. And I would think that he would maybe step away from his company while he's working for the government. But like you said, it's, and I get it, because these people are, they experts because of their business and what they do. But yes, we need more transparency, and it doesn't matter what your message is. Your message could be on the same side as our message, but it's still, the conflicts of interest need to be sorted out.
Yeah, because they're dangerous and they lead to what we saw in the pandemic. I keep bringing that up as an example, but it's the most stark example of danger from a public health and medical perspective that I think I'll ever see in my lifetime, to be honest with you. We'll get some more questions from the audience before we get to the end of the show. Let's go ahead and take those. Go ahead, Shel.
We have Cookie, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Dr. Dowling, for your fight. I had two questions. One, what is being done, or what can be done for if you or family members are a victim of the COVID shots? And the other one is, was there ever any true benefit for those that had health issues for this? and if they had done any studies between healthy individuals and the population of that had health issues.
Right. I mean, so it's a complicated because there's multiple studies on both sides of the issue saying that, yeah, the shots were absolutely no benefit at all. And then you've got studies showing that, yes, the shots saved millions of lives. So my take on it, though, is we had early treatment. We had very effective early treatment. And even if you didn't use ivermectin, monoclonal antibodies worked wonderfully. And so we had safe, effective treatment. We did not need to go down this route of a experimental shot that was rushed to the market, a technology that we have never used before. We basically deployed a phase 3 study on the entire world. It was completely unnecessary. But yeah, there's studies supporting both arguments, but it's just missing the obvious fact that we had treatment. And if you look at the actual mortality rate from COVID, it really wasn't as high as they made you think. The highest that I can find is 0.3%, but there's other studies showing it's 0.0003%. So, and then we had problems with testing. And is a COVID death really a COVID death, or is it somebody that came in on a motorcycle accident and happened to test positive for COVID? So there are all sorts of complicating factors. And then in terms of what you can do, yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's a challenging problem. We need the NIH to step up and take action and really do some good studies. I use ivermectin a lot. It binds the spike protein. It's anti-inflammatory. You have nattokinase and bromelain, which are two supplements that are thought to degrade the spike protein. If you go to Independent Medical Alliance, there are protocols that people can use to try to detox. I would say if you are not in bad health now, you're probably going to be okay. So, it's not a death sentence if you did get them, and try not too worried about it, because if you're okay now, odds are you're going to be okay going forward.
Yeah, I'm living testimony of that. I got the shot and then got COVID afterwards. I survived it, but I had a great doctor like you. That when I went in to see her, she was like, "Here's what we're going to do: boom, boom, boom." And she even made a comment under her breath. Yeah, they tell me I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm doing it anyway. Boom, boom, and I was fine. And I'm 63, and I already mentioned I'm type 2 diabetic, so that was an issue for us. But yeah, getting recourse for the adverse reactions is a challenge. Sure. We have one more question before we get to the end of the show. I think we can take it. Go ahead, Michelle.
We have Liz, sir.
Good afternoon, Colonel. Good afternoon, Dr. Bowden. My question to you is, you mentioned the food dyes. My question is, what about removing all this toxic preservatives in our food and the ones that are used to chemically treat our food, either in the process and or in the ground? How do you feel about those? I mean, should those be?
Yeah, I mean, we all have choices. I personally try not to eat stuff out of packages that have preservatives. But yes, that is definitely something that should be addressed. But I would say if you're worried about it, avoid anything that's packaged. I did carnivore diet for 6 months and lost 20 pounds. Felt great. I'm not as strict about it now, but I do try to avoid anything with a bunch of preservatives in it. I mean, we just inherently know when you eat something that has a shelf life of 10 years, it's probably not good for you. So I would just say, don't wait for the government to help you in that regard. Just help yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Bowden. I appreciate your time and your insights and the discussion. We really do appreciate it. How can folks find you?
Well, I'm pretty active on X at MD Breathe, and I also have a Substack, MD Breathe or Day 8.
Well, thank you very much. You'll be in our prayers because we want you to be successful in fighting the medical board so you can still treat patients and save lives. We appreciate it. Well, tomorrow is Truth Thursday, and we'll be talking with Reverend Robert Schuller about a pope. So it should be an interesting conversation. I'll see you then on the Rob Maness Show on World View Tube.